so nervous. I didn't sleep at all the night before I told him. But he was great with it. So I don't have to explain polygamy.
The sharp, echoing crack of the gavel exploded through the Flagstaff courthouse like a lightning strike splitting a summer sky. The sound carried a weight that felt final, as if the air itself had been charged with the gravity of what was about to unfold. Every eye in the room turned to the man seated at the defendant's table. This was not the Kody Brown America had grown used to seeing for more than a decade on Sister Wives. Gone was the confident smile, the casual charm, the self-assured posture of the man who had once stood at the center of a sprawling polygamous empire. The aura of control, the ease in front of the cameras, it had all vanished. What remained was a man sitting low in his chair, shoulders slumped, eyes darting toward the judge with restless unease, his lips pressed into a thin, tight line. Millions had watched him for years as the focal point of a groundbreaking family experiment. 1 husband, 4 wives, 18 children, and a dream of building one big spiritual home under one roof. But this wasn't a TLC set. There were no soft-lit kitchen conversations, no scripted confessions about moving states or building on Coyote Pass. This was reality without the safety net of reality television. This was a courtroom, and the stakes were far greater than ratings. The roots of this legal battle had been tangled in years of slow-burning tension. The collapse of Kody's plural marriage had played out like a public autopsy, each separation offering its own measure of heartache, betrayal, and bitterness. Christine had been the first to walk away, sending a shockwave through the family and the fan base. Then came Janelle, unapologetic and fiercely independent, leaving viewers cheering and Kody reeling. Mary had long ago withdrawn emotionally, their exchanges reduced to stiff words and simmering resentment. By the time Christine filed her legal claims, there was no turning back. What the public didn't know was that beneath the emotional wreckage lay unresolved battles over money and custody, disputes that could only be settled in court. The dream of one united family had curdled into a nightmare of legal fees and bitter accusations. Kody had his own version of the story. Years earlier, he had convinced all his wives to uproot from Las Vegas to Flagstaff, Arizona, chasing the promise of a quieter life and a massive family compound on a piece of land called Coyote Pass. On the show, it looked like a bold new chapter. But behind the scenes, it became a financial noose that tightened with each passing year. The land was bought in scattered parcels, each with its own complicated terms. Mortgages piled up, no homes were ever built. Instead, the Browns ended up scattered across multiple houses, each with its own costs, its own upkeep, and its own emotional toll. As Kody's energy and resources seemed to center increasingly on Robyn and her children, the other wives felt neglected, even abandoned. By the time Christine left, she wasn't just leaving Kody. She was walking away from a financial arrangement she claimed had been unfair from the start. And now, she wanted the court to set it right. Christine's legal filings hit like a bombshell. She accused Kody of failing to pay proper child support for their youngest daughter, Truly, of withholding shared assets, and of funneling money into Robyn's home to avoid responsibility for Coyote Pass and other debts. Fans who had long suspected that Robyn was Kody's favorite felt vindicated. The documents, parts of which later became public, painted a portrait of a man who was not only emotionally distant, but also selective when it came to his financial commitments. Christine's supporters saw her as a mother taking back control and fighting to secure her child's future. Kody's defenders argued that no one could possibly sustain multiple homes and 18 children under the scrutiny of the public eye. But in this courtroom, sympathy didn't matter. Evidence did. That first day, the Flagstaff courthouse buzzed with a kind of tension you could feel in your bones. Reporters, curious locals, and a few die-hard Sister Wives fans filled the benches. Christine arrived first, her back straight, her chin lifted, but the tension in her eyes betraying the weight of the day ahead. She wore a simple navy dress, understated but purposeful, and was flanked by her lawyers, their arms stacked with documents marked by bright tabs and sticky notes. Moments later, Kody walked in. The energy that fans remembered was nowhere to be found. He wore a gray suit that hung loosely on his frame, his signature blonde curls pulled back tightly. His gaze swept the room, landed briefly on Christine, then slid away. No greeting passed between them, no nod, no polite acknowledgement, only a cold silence that spoke louder than any words. The opening statements were like the first shots of a war. Christine's attorney wasted no time framing the case as one of broken promises and personal accountability. This was a man, she argued, who had built fame, fortune, and influence on the backs of a family that had stood by him for decades, only to turn away from them when the cameras stopped rolling. She vowed to make sure Christine's daughter received the financial and emotional security she deserved, and to hold Kody accountable for commitments he had failed to keep. The words hung heavy in the air, and Kody shifted in his seat. His own. Attorney countered fiercely, portraying Kody as a man doing his best to navigate an unimaginably complex family life under public scrutiny. These accusations, he argued, oversimplified decades of shared decisions, sacrifices, and yes, mistakes. From the very first exchange, it was clear this was going to be anything but a clean fight. For the public, this was more than another celebrity custody battle. To the millions who had followed the Browns for years, it was the dismantling of a carefully built image, the unmasking of private wounds, and proof that even the most picturesque family brand could split at the seams when tested by real life. This wasn't just Christine versus Kody. It was a reckoning for every vow ever made beneath TLC's bright lights. And as the first day closed, neither side had claimed victory, but the difference in their demeanors told its own story. Christine left with a faint smile, acknowledging the reporters without stopping. Kody walked past them without a glance, his jaw clenched tight. The verdict was far from decided, but one thing was certain. The drama that had played out on television was now in the hands of the law. The second day dawned under a heavy gray sky, the kind that seems to hold its breath. Outside the courthouse, a small crowd had gathered, locals, journalists, and a few loyal fans clutching homemade signs in support of Christine. She arrived just after 8:30 a.m. in a plain black SUV, stepping out without theatrics, her attorney by her side. She wore a simple teal blouse and dark slacks, her hair pulled neatly back. It wasn't a fashion choice, it was a statement of purpose. She was here to win. Inside, Kody was already seated at the defense table. He glanced up when she entered, his expression unreadable, but the twitch of his jaw and the restless shifting in his chair gave him away. When Christine's attorney began presenting her case, the air in the room shifted. This wasn't dry legal jargon. It was a story built on facts and framed with emotion. They started with custody of Truly. Though technically resolved, it was still central to the narrative. Christine's team presented a detailed timeline of Kody's visit since the split. The numbers spoke for themselves. While Christine had been present for every school event, every doctor's appointment, every milestone, Kody's appearances had been sporadic. One photo hit the room like a gut punch. A smiling Truly at a school science fair, standing proudly by her project. Christine beside her, beaming, the father's seat empty. From there, the fight turned to child support. Financial records were about to speak louder than any testimony.
Like he knew what I craved more than anything would have been like an intimate romantic marriage and relationship. So yeah, he knew.
Christine's legal team came armed with a mountain of evidence. Bank statements, payment records, and even personal letters that painted a very different picture from Kody's claims. Your Honor, her lawyer began, his voice steady but cutting. What we have here is not a man without means. He went on to explain that Kody still earns a steady income from ongoing television contracts, public appearances, and business ventures. And yet, when it came to supporting his daughter Truly, those contributions had been, at best, inconsistent, and at worst, non-existent. The court was shown exact dates when payments simply never arrived, despite Kody's accounts receiving tens of thousands during those same periods. Christine's attorney then pointed out the stark contrast: the big home and new cars enjoyed by Kody and Robin, their children's well-funded activities, compared to the tight budget Christine had to stretch just to meet Truly's needs. Then came Christine's own testimony, and the energy in the courtroom shifted instantly. She was no longer just a plaintiff. She was a mother telling her truth. Her voice stayed firm as she recounted the breakdown of her marriage, but when she spoke about the impact on Truly, her tone softened and wavered. She spoke of missed birthdays, unanswered calls, and painful questions from her daughter that she couldn't answer honestly. She once asked me why her dad didn't come to her choir concert, Christine said quietly, her hands clenched together in her lap. I told her he was busy, but the truth is, he just didn't come. No child should have to wonder about something like that." The room fell silent. Even seasoned reporters leaned forward, unable to look away from the raw honesty in her words. And then, Christine's lawyer delivered the evidence they'd been holding back. Text messages from Kody himself. In one, he dismissed her request for money for Truly's school field trip, saying, "Can't do it right now. Robin and I have our own bills." Another promised he'd catch up later, but the bank records proved that never happened. The judge didn't just see unpaid bills, he saw misplaced priorities. Together with Christine's testimony, the image formed was of a father whose attention and resources had shifted almost entirely toward one household, leaving the others to fend for themselves. When it was time for Kody's attorney to cross-examine, their goal was clear: make it seem as if Christine's own financial choices had caused her hardship. They pointed to her move to Utah, suggesting it was unnecessary and costly. Christine didn't flinch. "I moved to Utah because that's where my family is," she answered firmly. "That's where Truly has cousins, grandparents, and stability. And I wasn't going to stay in a place where I was emotionally and financially abandoned." Her words landed like a punch. She went on to speak not about bank accounts, but about life. Nights when Truly woke from nightmares, the Christmas that had to be smaller that year, and the pride she felt when her daughter kept thriving despite the circumstances. Christine explained that leaving polygamy allowed her to rebuild her self-worth, even though it came at the cost of financial security. She cried only a few times, and only when speaking about her love for her daughter. By the time she stepped down from the stand, Christine had won both logically and emotionally. The facts were solid, but so was the humanity behind them. The judge, usually reserved, scribbled down notes throughout her testimony. It was clear her words had left a mark. Outside the courtroom, Christine's day on the stand made headlines. Entertainment outlets ran stories like, "Christine Brown takes the stand in emotional court battle," and texts reveal Kody Brown's refusal to pay for daughter's school trip. Social media exploded with support. Fans called her brave and strong. Even some neutral viewers began criticizing Kody's apparent priorities. Inside, Kody sat rigid, his jaw tight, refusing to look at Christine. For years, he'd been able to control the family's narrative on reality TV, but here, under oath, there was no editing room to protect him. Christine's case was simple, but devastating. She had been Truly's primary caregiver, carrying the financial and emotional load almost entirely alone. Kody's involvement had been sporadic at best. Before the day ended, Christine's lawyer made a strategic move, requesting the judge order immediate temporary support for Truly while the trial continued. The judge didn't rule yet, but did acknowledge serious concerns about Kody's financial commitments. Christine left with a quiet, knowing smile. Kody slipped out a side door, avoiding reporters. The battle wasn't over, but Christine had landed the first major blow. Day 3 brought a shift in the courtroom atmosphere. The defense was ready to push back, and their key witness was Robin Brown, Kody's only remaining wife. Inside the hall before proceedings began, people whispered and craned their necks to catch a glimpse. Robin had long been a polarizing figure. To some, a devoted and unfairly criticized wife. To others, the embodiment of Kody's favoritism that had fractured the family. When she entered, dressed in a pale gray jacket and white turtleneck, with her hair loose over her shoulders, she looked subdued, though her dark lashes and wide eyes suggested careful preparation. She took her seat beside Kody, leaning in to whisper something. He nodded, face tense. When called to testify, Robin walked slowly to the stand, tissue in hand before she'd even been sworn in. The defense's strategy was obvious: portray her as the gentle truth-teller, humanizing Kody after 2 days of damaging testimony. "Mrs. Brown," the attorney began softly, "can you tell the court what kind of husband and father Kody has been in your experience?" Robin's voice trembled. Kody tries so hard to do the right thing for everyone. I've seen him stay up late, worrying about his kids, about the bills, about how this divorce has affected us. He's not perfect, none of us are. But he loves all of his children." Her voice cracked and she dabbed her eyes. When asked about Christine's claims that Kody failed to meet his obligations, Robin shook her head. Not from what I've seen. He works hard to provide. We've had struggles, especially with the Coyote Pass property and other money issues, but I've never known him to just walk away from responsibility. She described the dream of building a family community there, only to have it collapse under debt, zoning, and legal problems. We gave everything we had to that vision, she said, her voice thick with emotion. It didn't fall apart because Kody didn't care. It was because we were drowning in costs and logistics. Then Robin shifted the focus to Kody's role as a father, talking about him staying up late planning birthdays, discussing school with the kids, and worrying about his image. She even addressed the judge directly. I wish people could see the Kody I see, the one at the kitchen table trying to figure out how to help all his kids, even the ones who won't speak to him. A tear rolled down her cheek. The room stayed silent except for the sound of her tissue crumpling, but Christine's lawyer was ready. Mrs. Brown, he began in cross-examination, you've testified Mr. Brown has always met his obligations. Are you aware of months when no child support was paid to Christine for Truly? Robin hesitated. I don't personally make those payments, so I can't speak to the details. Are you aware, he pressed, of text messages in which Mr. Brown declined to contribute to Truly's school costs because of your household expenses? Robin's eyes flicked toward Kody before she answered.
I will tell you my relationship with him was very different than Christine and his. I never knew till later on that they were really struggling, but he and I never had.
Robin hesitated, her gaze flicking toward Kody as if searching for silent approval before she finally spoke. I wasn't aware of those specific messages, she murmured, her tone losing some of the confidence she had carried earlier. The air in the courtroom seemed to grow heavier, the carefully crafted image of loyalty and certainty she had been projecting beginning to unravel under the weight of pointed, unrelenting questions. Christine's attorney didn't raise their voice, but the steady pressure was undeniable. They reminded Robin of the documented dates, the bank records, and the exact words Kody himself had committed to writing. Each detail pressed against her, testimony like a slow but unyielding tide. For the first time, Robin's shoulders slumped and her answers grew shorter, the edges of her composure fraying. The shift was subtle, but it was there. The defense's most trusted witness no longer painted the same unshakable portrait she had when she first took the stand. Christine sat silently at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded neatly in, her lap, her expression calm and steady. She didn't need to speak. The evidence had taken over the storytelling. Every message, every date, every record of a missed payment formed another piece of a puzzle the judge was already starting to see with clarity. Kody remained beside his attorney, his gaze locked on the table, his jaw tight. This was not the man the public saw on camera, the one who could steer the family's narrative with a confident word or a carefully delivered explanation. Here, stripped of edits and retakes, the story belonged to documents, sworn testimony, and unchangeable facts. When Robin stepped down from the stand, the atmosphere had shifted entirely. The defense's emotional appeal, once so steady, had been punctured by facts too precise to dismiss. The judge, pen in hand, scribbled deliberate notes, the neutrality in his expression giving way to something sharper. Perhaps concern, perhaps disapproval. The courtroom's spectators seemed to sense the significance of the moment, exchanging glances as if they too recognized a turning point had just unfolded before their eyes. Outside the courthouse, the story spread like wildfire. Reporters dictated updates, and headlines took shape even before the day's session had officially closed. On social media, clips of Robin's hesitant responses circulated alongside footage of Christine's unwavering testimony, fueling conversations and drawing more public sympathy toward Christine's side. Fans debated fiercely, but the momentum seemed to tip further in her favor. When court adjourned, Christine walked out through the main doors, met by cheers and cameras flashing in rapid bursts. She smiled, but it was a measured smile. The look of someone who knew the battle wasn't yet won but had taken a decisive step forward. Kody, in stark contrast, slipped quietly out a side exit, avoiding questions and lights. His silence in that moment carried a weight of its own, louder than any defense could offer. The trial wasn't over, but the balance had shifted. Christine had